Welcome to Wild, Women in Lending Determined to Make an Impact. I'm your host, Robin Lavasser. They say our biggest fear is not that we are inadequate. It's being powerful beyond measure. In this podcast, I will share how to break through imaginary ceilings, lean into success, discovering your purpose, and understanding how to create the business and life of your dreams. From failures to triumphs and all the tactics in between, let's jump into the wild arena together. Welcome back to Wild with Robin Lavasser, talking today about solving problems that are existent in everybody's everyday lending experiences on the operational side and on the loan side especially. And so I want to talk about some of those things that I teach and coach a lot in the branch. And I thought, why not share them today with all of you and see if they move the dial a little bit in your own business. So let's talk about a couple things. One, solving problems sooner. We super struggle sometimes with identifying that there's a problem. And when we don't identify it quickly, we think, oh, I'll get it fixed and then everything will go smooth from here. And I always say that time is not your friend in lending. It is not your friend. You never have as much time as you think you have. And that is true for not only a loan officer, it's true for real estate agents. It's true for your borrowers. It's true for your processing team. It's true across the board. And it's really interesting. When you generally get into underwriting and closing, there's a deadline. They have what we would call an SLA, a service level agreement. They have to get that file back out to you in 24 to 48 hours. There's rules behind it. But in our world, when we first receive a contract, yes, we're supposed to disclose, get it out in 3 days, do all of the magical things. However, sometimes we don't even get that contract for the first week because the realtor got it officially signed and then was out and then forgot to forward it. And all of a sudden we've got it. Needless to say, we never have as much time, and we all can relate to this. If you've ever touched even a few files, this is a rule that comes into play often. We never have as much time as we think we do, which means we have to work very intensely. I don't mean stressful, I mean intense. Urgency, a huge sense of urgency to make sure that things stay on track. And what I find is that we don't have great urgency and direction and clarity in how we move the loans effectively is a good word, or efficiently. So let's talk about how to do that. One issue in general is that we're not setting enough deadlines on all things. And so a great basic rule that you can create in your office in general with yourself and or with your team, but it very much starts from the top down, which means you yourself as the originator very much needs to grab hold of this. And that is all things, and I'm guilty of not doing this well, all things should have a deadline. It can be a deadline and it should be that is sooner than when is absolutely necessary. My family, I'm not good with time. So my family plays kind of a joke to me that if they really want dinner to start at 6:30, they'll start hounding me and saying, Mom, dinner tonight is at 6 o'clock. Everyone's going to be there to eat at 6 o'clock. You can't be later than 6 o'clock. I'll tell you, I'm really guilty. Sometimes I walk in at 6:05, but they have learned dinner actually was starting at 6:30. Now I have to find out when they're joking, when they're not. And we kind of play that cat and mouse game, different topic for a different day. I say that out loud, you guys, because if you check work, your own and your team's, you will find that we are very vague in our communication. We don't often say things like, hey, we absolutely need this by 3 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon, uploaded into here. So the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how, right? All of those things need to come into play. If you cannot get them by this time and date, I need to be aware of it, right? So not only saying I need them by this date, but then also I'm a safe place to argue with, if you will, and or clarify with, there's no way I can get that. We're out of town right now. It's going to have to be tomorrow. That's why you always cushion those dates, by the way, because if they argue, you need to have the first date is your dream. That would come in so quick. It would keep us more than ahead of schedule. The second date still beats the date and time that you need it, still beats it. And then the third date, worst case scenario, comes with a hard hammer and no later than this date and time, period, end of story. Or, hear me, your file is in jeopardy. Your file is in jeopardy of not closing on time, which puts your earnest money in jeopardy. It puts your contract in jeopardy, right? There is money on the line. Your lock in jeopardy if you're a refinance, but we have to put deadlines. And I can tell you, I lead a lot of people every single day in both operations and in sales, and we suck at this for the most part. We really suck at putting solid deadlines, when we would like to hear back, what our expectation is. And then when people meet or beat it, we should be celebrating to the high heavens about like, thank you, thank you, thank you for getting it to me before 3 p.m. Thank you for meeting that expectation. You've been amazing. When people get that little bit of like, attaboy, girl, they were like, oh, great. Next time Robin asks me for something, I know that if I get it in, I get that little dopamine hit, right? There's a big win, even for clients and realtors. And that sounds funny, but it's a true, true, true statement. So do a great job in your office, do some spot checks of yourself, do some spot checks, and then have this conversation with your referral partners. Have this conversation that edifies that this is what's going to happen with your clients at your pre approval consultation, if you will, in addition to your disclosure consultation. At those two places, you should be edifying how bossy you and your team are about to become, what's needed to make sure they get those keys on time, what's needed to make this as stress free as possible, to be ahead of schedule. It's like having wedding planning completely done and 2 months to go before the wedding is going to be here. All of a sudden, you're like, oh gosh, I feel super chill. I feel relaxed. I feel excited. I'm anticipating now. That's what happens when a borrower's loan documents and loans stays ahead of schedule and everything went so smooth that they're like, you're already done. Nothing to worry about. Things are already set. You can pick a date next week to sign versus sorry to do this to you. You have to get off at 10 a.m. You have to sign by 10:45 at the latest. Docs have to be back in order to get that wire out. That's when people feel like, what the heck is going on? Who was disorganized in all this that caused this problem? And what weak teams and loan officers do is they say, it was the borrower. It was the borrower who didn't get me their stuff. It's their fault. It was the agent. You see people in this industry constantly blame instead of own. And the very best of the best that stand out above the rest, that create a massive sphere of people that say, you've got to use Robin Lavasser. She is the best of the best. It's really boils down to very clear, very kind, but very firm and direct about how to get this done. I'm in charge. You're in my business, and my business is to take care of you and get you closed, right? So it's very, very clear. And then I edify that throughout the process of all parties that are going to be engaged and involved. If anybody gets squirrely after me, so if they behaved well for me, but they won't seem to behave well for my processor or my assistant or anybody else involved, I will get back on the phone and line that client back into the track, if you will, right? I'm going to pull them back in and lay the hammer down a little bit, obviously with great customer service and love, but I'm going to realign. And that is your job as a leader. So be super clear on that. Now, let's talk about solving problems earlier. People tend to be afraid to use their voice and they think to themselves, let's see if we can get away with this bank statement. Let's see if we can do this. Well, what happens is the one day, then it's one day in underwriting. Oh, then it's a weekend. Then it happened to have a holiday this week. And next thing you know, we're in crunch mode. And nobody used their voice sooner, didn't set better deadlines. And a great file turns into a little bit of a frenzy. And frenzies don't feel good, especially at the very end, because it's the last memory that anybody has about how it felt to work with you, how it felt right before they got their funding and their keys, right? It really, really matters. One of the things that I'm constantly coaching and teaching in my group is I want you to envision this metaphor, if you will. How different does it feel when you maybe start to not feel good and you decide to go to the doctor? And I'll give you a weird analogy, and it's actually a personal one. But I, the other day, legitimately had this like lump show up in my cheek. This little lump, and it was just a little tender. I could feel it, and I thought, did I just bite my cheek? And I felt, and there was this lump, and it was moving around, and it was a little bit hard, if I'm being honest. It's like floating in my cheek. I know, weird, but and I was like, oh, what is going on? And of course, the C word, all the things, like, I was like, why do I have a lump in my mouth? What is causing that? And I can feel it on the outside. I couldn't see it. And I can also feel it on the inside. And so I immediately, without hesitation, the moment I was off a call, pinged my doctor. Can I get in? And they instantly were like, yeah, we have a cancellation. We can get you in today. Here's what's crazy. I went to the doctor, had it looked at for all of 10 minutes. It was such a quick fix. And I was able to just head back into work. Nothing's wrong. It's actually like your mouth kind of throwing a kidney stone, but not as painful. Very bizarre. But they basically said, Hey, suck on some sour or sweet candies, drink a ton of water. And if it's not gone in a week and a half, then we'll kind of do a little further investigation. But this actually is probably nothing. Now, I can tell you, 2 days later, it was shrunk down. I've been drinking a bunch of water. They handed me a lemon head. I'm not exaggerating. And sucking on some sour stuff. And sure enough, my glands are clearing up and that lump is going away. But for a minute, now imagine if that wasn't the case. Maybe it does hang around. Maybe it stayed for a couple weeks or something like that. And I avoided it and ignored it and or just delayed it. Just delayed it because I thought I had plenty of time. Now imagine getting in there and then being like, gosh, this would have been so minor 3 weeks ago, but now it feels major. And a better analogy is, and I say this all the time about loans, going to the doctor is fairly painless. I guess is a good word, right? Painless, painless. It's painless to go to the doctor overall. Shy of me getting on the scale. I don't enjoy that part, but it's pretty painless to go to the doctor. It feels really painful and very dramatic to have to go to the ER. Even more dramatic to have to get rushed by an ambulance to an ER, to a hospital. And sometimes we ignore that little signal on a loan that says we should be raising our hand right now. We should be really getting clear, kind, direct, like very clear on what we need to do to solve this possible problem that's starting to brew. And we wait, and all of a sudden it becomes possibly an ER visit that you drove to, or even worse, an ambulance ride, which is expensive. It's traumatic. Lots of people know about it. It creates more angst for anybody involved that loves you and all of those things. And so I want you to analyze doctor visit pretty quick, pretty easy. Let's go in, get ahead of everything versus hospital. Way more expensive, costs you so much more time, energy, emotion, trust, lots of things when you have to go by ambulance, especially, right? It's an ugly, ugly thing. I don't mind problems. They're going to happen on all loans. And thank goodness it's part of the reason we all get paid. But problems generally can be tackled at the doctor, but not if we wait till they need to be an ER visit. So check yourself, check your team. Are you getting ahead of things? Are you staying intense and urgent on the initial work that you're doing on loans? Are you edifying, being in charge and being in control of the process, you calling the shots? And are you setting deadlines with clients that ultimately they don't serve you, they serve them, having that wedding plan 2 months in advance and just going, "Gosh, I get to pick a day at this point and I feel great about it." Because that's what we're all striving for. That's what builds a beautiful business, but even more impactfully, that's what builds a beautiful, beautiful life for yourself, and it balances out the stress of the industry with feeling like, "Gosh, I've got so much that's smooth as butter, and I only had one that landed in the ER this month." What a beautiful gift, right? Some of y'all are at the ER with every single file running triage nonstop. And I can tell you there are ways out of that. And we do a lot of coaching and teaching. We do a Friday call, things that we can share with you that would be incredibly valuable. I guarantee you to move the dial and not only your business, but your balance. So if you ever want to join us in that, shoot us a message. I would love to get you on our Scaling the Skills on Friday. We do a Monday sales call. There's lots of things that go on to improve your processes. And I hope that this episode moves the dial for you and your business. If it does, I hope you share it. We'll see you on the next Wild.